Hello, everybody from outside of the YouTube universe. You know who I am, and you know what this day is. I've waited so long to actually get this list together, and everybody wanted me to actually do these top good things on the season 6. And today I actually bring you guys my top 7 favorite Loud House episodes from season 6. Oh, do I got a big treat in store for you about what number 1 is. Don't!
Get it?
Shut up! That boy can feel pain.
Sigh.
Save Royal Woods. Okay, so this kind of episode special I really enjoyed so much, but personally I kind of wish this was the finale of season 6 because honestly it kind of felt like it should have ended almost the show with this episode special because it's just the Royalwood citizens that are trying to save their Royalwood's home from being flooded by Joyce Crandall. There's a lot of good songs, there's a lot of teaming up, and a lot of characters that are either major or minor in this one, especially all the way back from season 1, 2, 3, and 4. And it's just so great that even though they do make their appearance in this one and they don't even speak so, it does make a good, nice touch to it. Although it's so great to see Albert, Mr. Rouse, Flip, Haiku, Liam, Darcy, Melly, and a lot more, I could just go on with this. But there is a bit of a drawback to this episode. Even though Lisa rapping out of nowhere is kind of annoying, and even Clyde's singing voice is kind of cringeworthy, thanks to the actor hitting puberty.
Forget about a town this proud. You might want to keep us around.
But the final song in this episode special, I think, is really great. And it did have a nitpick to it. Where was Lori at during this whole entire time? She wasn't even in the beginning of this episode special, and suddenly they put her in the ending of it? I mean, really, is there something that we really missed, that Lori was actually there with the family the whole time, and then suddenly we start seeing her at the very last minute of this episode? But anyways, I enjoyed this one, and I really wish it could have ended season 6, or most likely almost end the show. Or it kind of end the show, to be precisely. Because honestly, I think this actually would have been a great movie event. I know it would be much like the Hey Arnold movie, but honestly, that movie was about saving their neighborhood. This is about saving their town. And there's so much more you could do with so much of the characters during almost an hour movie. Kind of like what they did with the Simpsons movie. And plus would have a lot more character interactions in this one, other than the Hey Arnold movie that didn't have that much character interaction with other characters. Present Danger. This one I really so much enjoyed, and I was looking forward to reviewing, especially when this is actually centered around Lincoln Loud's 12th birthday. I was like, yes, we're finally actually getting a birthday episode that seems a little bit more better than Strife at the Party. We have Lincoln being dressed up as David Steele during his birthday party at Gus's Games Club until one of his gifts is actually stolen by a mysterious figure. And later on, he goes hunting for this person with the aid of Lisa's assistant about upgrading Lola's vehicle to be like a David Steele mobile, a different watch, different kind of shoes, and all that good stuff. We get so much action, so much good chase scenes. And he does get his gift in the very end, which turned out to be stolen by Rusty, who just wanted to play so much a game with him. Everything was just so great in this episode. But there is a bit of a drawback in this episode I had to constantly nitpick about. If there's one thing I have to say about this episode, it's the fact that it's a little too short for its own good, for the running time a bit, for being 11 minutes. It felt like they kind of shoehorned into it because it felt like they had no time to kind of stretch this out a little bit more to actually be like a birthday special. In fact, it would have been like almost the first birthday special in this season because there's so much more they could have actually done. That would have made the execution feel so much better. It's not really that bad, but I do wish it could have been a lot more, like in 22 minutes to actually start season 6 on a real good high note in a special, way much better than School. Haunted House Calls. Okay, I know everybody criticizes about how the way the ghosts are actually done and how this is a more down-to-earth show, but if there's one thing I actually enjoy about the episode itself, more than argue for real, it's the fact that I love a Ghostbuster theme episode, and I love the Ghostbusters. Because this is exactly what this episode is. Lucy and the Morticians actually doing some ghost hunting business because they want to be at this little Comic-Con to actually catch this casket that they actually want to witness. And to do that, they have to do a ghost busting business where they hunt down ghosts and capture them and send them back to the afterlife. Until they summon a prankster ghost named Buzz, voiced by Bozo the Clown, who actually causes mischief and mayhem around so much Royal Woods, especially when he wanted to get back at one of his neighbors who has been a pain in his ass. And you could turn out that was Scoots, obviously. I can't imagine why. And I actually really do like how the way the ghosts actually look in this, especially when they got no physical legs, where they just look there exactly like ghosts, like in Casper. Although I wish the Loud House movie didn't do that shit. I enjoyed the Morticians, I enjoyed most of the ghosts, and I do believe in ghosts every time. If there's something strange in Royal Woods, who are you gonna call? These guys. Sega. The last laugh. Oh my gosh. I can't help but fall in love with this episode so much because there's a lot of cuteness and there's a lot of great humor that actually is balanced out in this episode. Although there's a bit of a nitpick I have to say, which I'm going to get to in a moment. But the best thing is with Lola and Luann actually combining and working together and teaming up on stage where you got cuteness and funny together. Almost similar to Funny Business, but this feels like it's 3 times so much cute and so much sass, and there's a lot of charm that's actually in this. So when Mr. Coconuts gets damaged, who gives a flying crap about him? Lola takes his place and decides to be, I dare say this is so funny, Luann's dummy in part of the show called Princess Sassy Pants. And I just love how the way Lola looks and pretends to actually be an actual puppet. Because it's just so cute how the way I had to review this episode right after when I saw the movie Megan 5 times in theaters. By the times when Mr. Coconuts has finally been repaired, Luann thinks he should go and get him, but turns out that she's having a little bit too much fun with Lola and doesn't want to lose her friendship or bonding with her. And when Mr. Coconuts does come home, somehow he kind of gets a bit of jealousy about being replaced and somehow seeking revenge after he just got replaced. But honestly, this was a bigger major nitpick for me to say, but is Coconuts really alive or possessed by someone else who isn't Luann Loud? Because it turns out who was ever sabotaging Lola's dress and all the other kind of props that they were going to do in the show, it turned out to be Luann herself while she was actually sleepwalking as Mr. Coconuts. I mean, seriously, you could have actually had this little guy get up and walk on his own. Although it wouldn't surprise me if it was a good combat from T-Tail Hard. Other than that just being a major nitpick of this episode, I still actually love the enjoyment of Luann and Lola working together. And I'm hoping that they actually do this again in the future. It's adorable, it's cute, it's enjoyable, it's cute, it's adoring, and I just love bonding with these two. And I hope nothing gets flanized or derailed from this. Sega. Stroke of luck. There is so much in this episode I can really relate to and I can really enjoy, especially when it's focused on Lori, where she becomes a big celebrity at her university when hitting a bunch of hole-in-ones, unexpectedly, not even knowing and being aware that it was Lisa's little invention, which I don't know how the hell did that even happen or how did that get into her hands. And all suddenly she starts getting scared about it. She has to tell them all the truth about what really went on. And somewhat, I don't think Lisa was actually needed in this episode. Because seriously, you could take her out of this episode and it would be so much better. Because in the end, when Lori actually tells the truth about what really happened when she didn't really hit those holes and run, when it was all because of Lisa's invention, Lisa should have actually came here and actually confessed and told them the truth, that everything was her fault instead of Lori's fault. And an episode like this makes you want to love Lori a lot, especially with her maturity and actually her honesty about that would even get her more rewarded. Because at least, at the very freaking least, she did try to tell them the truth for the first time before they just got in over their heads. And she didn't try to make a liar reveal episode, as if many Loud House kids shouldn't even try that at all. Especially when it's Lincoln's episode. And you know, one of my critic buddies is going to criticize about how bad this episode is because he thinks it is bad, but you know what? Suck it. It's still a good episode. Everybody loved it, and everybody adored Lori for what she did in this episode. I love Lori's character development, I love her growth, and I love the fact of her honesty and being mature enough to be a grown woman. Some of the Loud siblings should actually try that. Lisa and her little invention was not even needed in this episode, and it would have got a higher rating. I love Lori, and I wish all of her young siblings would stop tormenting her and getting her into trouble. Sega. Cheer pressure. It's really kind of hard to believe that a Lynn Loud episode would actually be this good and actually be on a favorite list of mine. Especially when this is coming from Lynn and her friends Margot and Paula actually competing with a bunch of cheerleaders that they could out-cheer them more than them. But it turns out they had no skills or no practice or so much ideals of what it feels like to be a cheerleader or what it pays off to actually be a cheerleader, especially when it's so much hard work than what they do when they're competition in games. And it still questions me why Paula is still playing these games even with a broken fucking leg. I do love so much the interactions with Meryl and Cheryl actually helping the girls out to be better cheerleaders, and the fact how Lynn is so prideful in so much in times, but in the very ending of this episode, she didn't get angry or aggravated about losing the game and actually did make it up to so much of her crew and did talk to the cheerleaders and apologize for what they did, and suddenly they're become friends with them, which really is a good payoff how Lynn is kind of growing to actually be a character and learning to put her prideness aside and then just accept defeat in times. I mean, clearly to speak, everybody's a winner, no matter if you win or lose. Even if I am a person who had a grudge for cheerleaders back in my school years, but seeing this episode, it kind of makes me feel like go with it, even if they prefer to actually date guys who are playing the games. But in terms of the episode, I actually love Lynn, I like her friends, and I love how the way Lynn's growth actually comes through, especially toward in the end. I just hope we get more good episodes like this, good sports, sponsored trip, and even Can't Win 'em all. Now, for a season 6 episode, there were so many good and there were many bad episodes, but normally I don't do this, but I'm actually going to do my top 3 favorite honorable mentions of the episodes I actually really liked behind number 1 on this list. Snow Escape. Holy shit, this was a fucking fun and hilarious episode I have ever seen, especially at Lynn manhunting her own siblings around the show because of a packing day. So much the intensity and so much of the humor just gets me going, like it keeps you on the edge of your seat, like are Lincoln and his sisters actually gonna make it before Lynn actually gets them? I just hope we get another one like this. They'd be a lot more better than the April Fool's trilogy. Great Lakes Freakout, another great Halloween special I actually love, especially when this is coming from a guy who actually loves Halloween so much, very much often. And I just love seeing how the way the Louds and even the Casa Grandes are actually doing a Halloween special together. Well, not every single Loud House sibling is actually here in this episode, or at least their mom and dad are actually in this episode, even if they are mentioned into it. But there's so a lot of scares, there's a lot of fun. But there's also a couple of nitpickings about some of the characters that were actually there only just for a short, limited time. That includes Lana for some reason, and why they kind of all get themselves put in a zombie apocalypse, which actually is kind of nice, but somewhat, it feels like it should be more down to earth. But honestly, I think it was pretty much fun. In some fantasies, you can just go with it, especially when it's Halloween. Love Stinks. I love so much the interaction with Lola and the actual skunk, Antoinette, or at least Anne, as Lana might call her. But honestly, there's so much cuteness, there's a lot of heartfelt moments, and there's a lot of heartstrings that it can tug at you in many different ways with Lola and her interaction with an actual animal, especially when this is actually a skunk. Even if it was very hard for her in the very end to try and let her go, but suddenly in the very end, she actually accepts it and just does the right thing. I just hope one day this skunk actually returns in another Loud House episode and Lola doesn't forget her completely. It's just this damn adorable, and especially when this ended season 6 on a great note. And now, the moment everybody has waited for, my number 1 most lovable, favorite, Loud House episode from season 6 of all time. And this one I actually really love, and so much I enjoyed it so much, especially when it first came to my viewing site in December. And that goes to a stellar performance.
God damn.
This episode. There is so much development and character growth that's coming from one of the Freckle gangs named Stella, and especially about how she felt a little embarrassed about what she did back then, about being in front of a whole entire crowd. And I can actually relate to some of that, especially when we're all young kids, how we kind of get a little trepidated or actually anxiety when we're on stage in front of 100 people in an auditorium, especially when they're performing in a talent show. And I do love how the way so much the Freckle Gang was actually helping Stella out, but I think Lincoln should have actually helped Stella out in this episode, as he would have practically done with her in Be Stella My Heart, trying to make her fit into the school. Big missed opportunity, but somehow they brought it back in this one, but somewhat it could have been just Lincoln and Stella. Like Lincoln could have been helping Stella actually get through her anxiety of being on stage in front of hundreds of people. Especially when it came to the point when Zach actually messed up his own fucking tape and got her mind messed up to talk like an alien and act like one on stage. But Stella does make some of the weirdest and even cutest facial expressions in this episode, especially when this is coming from the girl who played Marcy in Amphibia. Wonderful performance from her. Even though Princess Ramirez was very helpful, but somewhat I don't think she was constantly needed for this episode, because honestly, there are some things that she's not too much helpful with these days. But I'll kindly give her a bit of a pass in this one. And I pray like there's no derailment with Stella's character from this episode, especially when she's the character who should be the voice of reasons. Then again, I hope Kara actually has a voice of reason and uses common sense, other than just going with their little devious little schemes that could either mess up the day of others or get themselves in trouble. I know I'm not too much of a big Lincoln and Freckle Gang episode kind of fan, but I am good of a fan with Stella. And so this pretty much concludes my top 7 favorite lovable Loud House episodes from season 6. Oh, you guys just can't wait to see what I got hated in store with the next video about this season.
Cause this is